Most people who pray don't think they're doing it wrong. But Jesus looked at the way the most religious people around him prayed and said, "Don't do that. Don't pray like them. Don't pray standing on street corners to be seen. Don't repeat the same words over and over thinking more words means more results." And then he said something that doesn't get quoted nearly enough. Your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Matthew 6:8, NIV. If that's true, and Jesus said it was, then what is prayer actually for? That question is what we're going to sit with today, because Jesus didn't just critique how people were praying. He showed them, and us, what prayer was supposed to be, and it's different from what most people assume. Context, setup, 053. We're in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapters 5 through 7. Jesus is on a hillside. Tradition places it near the Sea of Galilee, teaching a crowd unlike any rabbi had taught before, not interpreting the law from a safe distance, not positioning himself beneath the tradition. He's speaking with his own authority. You have heard it said, but I say to you. The people listening to him were Jews living under Roman occupation. Most of them knew their scripture. They prayed. Religion was woven into daily life. Morning prayers, afternoon prayers, evening prayers, 3 times a day, facing Jerusalem. The synagogue was the center of the community, and yet Jesus looks at how prayer was being practiced by the most visibly devout people in the culture and says something startling. When you pray, do not be like the hypocrites. Matthew 6:5, NIV. Hypocrites. It's a word we use loosely today, but in the Greek, the language Matthew's gospel was written in, the word is hypocrites. It literally means an actor, someone performing a role on a stage. Jesus is not accusing these men of conscious deception. He's pointing to something subtler and more dangerous, the slow drift from praying to God toward performing for an audience. It happens quietly. Prayer becomes a signal to others, proof of devotion, a mark of piety. The prayer is still said, but the audience has shifted from God to people. Jesus saw it clearly, and he called it by its name. The teaching, 3:180. Passage 1, Matthew 6:5-8. Pray in secret. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6:6, NIV. Some read this as a rule about location. Only pray alone, never in groups. But that misses the point. Jesus himself prayed publicly. He prayed at Lazarus' tomb, John 11:41-42. He lifted his eyes to heaven before feeding 5,000 people, John 6:11. He prayed with his disciples. The instruction isn't about geography, it's about audience. Go somewhere the performance is impossible. Remove the people who might be watching. What's left, when there's no one to impress, is the real prayer. That's what he's after. He continues, and when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Matthew 6:7, NIV. The Greek word for babbling here is batologio, to stammer, to chatter, to repeat emptily. In first-century pagan practice, prayer was often transactional. You listed the god's titles, made your offering, repeated your request. The goal was to get the god's attention and make him feel obligated. Jesus says, that's not how this works. Your Father is not a God you need to talk into caring about you. He already knows what you need. The lengthy words aren't for him, they're for you. To feel like you've earned something, said the right formula, done enough. Jesus strips all of that away, and then before he gives them a model prayer, he says it again, plainly, your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Matthew 6:8, NIV. That sentence reframes everything that follows. Passage 2, Matthew 6, 9-13, the Lord's Prayer. This then is how you should pray. Matthew 6, 9, NIV. Notice he does not say, "These are the exact words you must use." He says, "This is how. This is the shape. This is the structure." The Lord's Prayer is a template, not a script. Let's walk through it. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Matthew 6, 9, NIV. It begins with worship, not a request, not a problem to solve. It begins with who God is. The first movement of prayer, Jesus says, is orientation, acknowledging that you are not alone and that the one you're speaking to is holy. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Matthew 6:10, NIV. The first request, and it isn't personal, your kingdom, your will. This is the center of gravity in the Lord's Prayer. Jesus places surrender before petition. Before you ask for your daily bread, before you ask for anything, you ask for God's will to prevail. You acknowledge that your agenda is not necessarily His, and you choose His anyway. That's not a small thing. That's the whole spiritual life compressed into one line. Give us today our daily bread. Matthew 6:11, NIV. Now, the personal request. And notice what it is. Not abundance, not security, not next year's provision. Today's bread. Present tense, specific and limited. Jesus is not discouraging us from praying about real material needs. He is shaping how we hold those needs, not anxious hoarding, not demands for certainty about the future. Present tense trust. And forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Matthew 6:12, NIV. Forgiveness, and the link to our own forgiveness of others. Jesus connects the inner life of prayer to the outer life of relationships. They cannot be separated. This mirrors what he teaches explicitly in Matthew 6:14-15, and what he explores in the parable of the unmerciful servant in Matthew 18. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Matthew 6:13, NIV. The prayer closes with protection, an acknowledgement that we are not self-sufficient, that the world contains real spiritual danger, and that we need God's guidance to navigate it. The structure of the whole prayer is this: worship, surrender, provision, forgiveness, protection. That order matters. Jesus doesn't begin with what you need. He begins with who God is. Everything else follows from that. Passage 3, Matthew 7:11. Ask, seek, knock. Later in the same sermon, Jesus returns to prayer, and this time with what sounds like a bold promise. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. Matthew 7:7, NIV. This verse gets taken out of context more than almost any other in the Sermon on the Mount. It is not a blank check. It is not a promise that God will give you whatever you want if you ask with enough faith or say the right words. Read what comes next. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? Matthew 7:9, 11, NIV. The guarantee is not, you'll get exactly what you ask for. The guarantee is, you are asking a Father who loves you, who is good, and who gives good gifts. The prayer that asks for bread will not receive a stone, but the Father determines what bread looks like. This is not a disappointing limitation. It is a comfort. It means your prayers are not bouncing off the ceiling into silence. They are received by someone who knows you, loves you, and is working for your good, even when the answer looks different from what you requested. What this means for us, Psalm 10:30, Jesus is not giving us a complicated new religious system. He's doing something simpler and more radical. He's inviting us into a relationship. The hypocrites prayed to be seen by men. Jesus says, "Pray to be seen by your Father." The pagans prayed to earn the attention of their gods. Jesus says, "Your Father already knows what you need." The disciples asked how to pray. Jesus gave them a template that starts with God's name and God's will, not their shopping list. Prayer, in Jesus' framework, is not a technique for getting what you want. It is the practice of keeping company with God, of orienting yourself daily toward who He is and what He's doing, and placing your needs, honestly, in His hands. That changes what prayer feels like. It means prayer doesn't have to be impressive. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to use the right vocabulary. Jesus is not asking for eloquence. He's asking for honesty, humility, and trust. 3 things stand out from everything Jesus said. 1. Remove the audience. Whatever gets in the way of genuine conversation with God, remove it. The location isn't the point. The orientation is. 2. Surrender comes before asking. Your will be done is not the consolation prize you add at the end when you didn't get what you wanted. It's the first posture. Everything else is held within it. 3. God is a good Father, not a vending machine, not a distant deity you need to persuade. A Father who gives good gifts to those who ask. That's the promise, and it's better than a blank check. Closing 10:30 end. Prayer is one of those things that can become a performance or a transaction without us even noticing. Jesus noticed. He saw it in the most religious people of His day, and He clearly, gently offered a different way. Not louder prayers, not longer ones, honest ones, quiet ones, ones where you start with His name instead of your need. If something in this video stirred something in you, I'd love for you to subscribe. We go deep into what Jesus actually said, straight from the text, every single week. And I'll leave you with a question worth sitting with. When you pray, who are you actually talking to?